To talk about this and plenty more, let's head to the United States. Joining me is Professor of Political Science at the University of California, Prof DeSipio. There is plenty going on in foreign policy right at the moment, isn't there, Lewis?
Oh, absolutely. And that doesn't always work to the advantage of incumbent presidents, but President Biden is doing what he can.
He's sounding more strident in his language. Is that just my observation, or do you think that's brought on by the fact that there's an election in November?
Well, I think in terms of Russia, he has been strident all along. I think on domestic politics and on his own accomplishments, he's being a little bit more strident. And that just reflects the fact that the campaign in earnest has begun. He's on the road and needs to show people that he's up to the job.
Had a powerful scene the other day with him and former Presidents Bill Clinton and Barack Obama.
Absolutely. Reminding the American people of sort of what the Democrats have given them over the last 30 years. But I think more importantly, raising a boatload of money for President Biden's reelection campaign. He already has a financial advantage, but unfortunately in American politics, you can never have too much money.
Well, that's a big issue for Donald Trump right at the moment, isn't it? Because at the minute, Joe Biden has more than double the cash for the campaign that Trump has.
That's absolutely right. And former President Trump is spending the money more quickly because he's using his campaign funds in part to fund his own legal expenses, which with four major cases against him are quite extensive. Former President Trump has also, I think, faced the challenge that some of the large donors that he's relied on in 2016 and 2020 are a little more hesitant to give this time. So he still has his base of, $5 and $10 a month donors, but he doesn't have yet the big ones that can fund much of the campaign.
He did have a bit of a win this week with that bond being dropped, but it's still a significant amount of money.
I think he has a win. He had a win in that he can pay the bond, but it's still $175 million, which is not a trivial amount. At the same day that bond was reduced, the trial, one of the four sets of trials, was scheduled in New York for April 15th. So he'll be facing that very soon.
The devil's in the detail, isn't there, as you look at the whole scene heading towards November. It's tight. There's no question it's tight. Joe Biden, though, has scored what you'd call a poll boost in the sense of some of the Republicans, some of the base of the Republican movement is not with Donald Trump.
That's absolutely right. And you've seen that both at the sort of elite level, Senator Murkowski from Alaska this week saying that she wouldn't support President Trump, but also, evidence that maybe 15 or 20% of Republicans are very hesitant about voting for President Trump again. The challenge, of course, for President Biden is that he doesn't hold on to 100% of the Democratic coalition. There's frustration among young voters, perhaps some African-American voters, and voters of Middle Eastern and Arabic ancestry. And those are all core Democratic constituencies, particularly in a couple of the battleground states that President Biden needs to win in November.
There does seem a real fear in Middle America of another Donald Trump presidency.
Yes. And so the question for the fall campaign will be, how do you balance that fear of another Trump presidency with the promise that he makes to Middle America and to America as a whole that he is a better leader for the moment? The challenge, of course, for former President Trump is that he needs to articulate a positive message as well as a negative message. And he really hasn't found that yet. Grievance goes only so far. You need to offer hope for America as well. And he's not doing that at all.
Well, Lewis, we spoke a number of months ago, and every time the courts were mentioned or there was some appointment with a lawyer, Donald Trump would get a sugar hit. We did speculate that that might start to take its toll. Is it starting to take its toll?
It is reinforcing the doubts that those 15 or 20% of Republican voters that we talked about have, and certainly independent voters. The challenge is if President Trump is on trial every day, as he will be starting April 15th, he gets almost a free news conference at the end of every day on the courthouse steps. And we just don't know how the American public will respond to the grievance with the complexity of a legal case that isn't always straightforward every day. It'll be interesting to see how he pulls that off, and if he can, and he can continue to campaign while he's doing that.
Absolutely. Lewis, have a wonderful Easter with the family. Always good to chat. Let's do it again.
Absolutely. Have a good day, Tim.